think it's something that there's widespread support for across the city from all sections of the community, because I would believe there's no single family in this wider area that has not been touched somehow by addiction. And I think until relatively recently, the focus has been very much on alcohol abuse and addiction to alcohol and alcohol recovery. And while there can never be enough services to help people either who are still actively street drinking, and that is a choice of a way of life, or those who are trying to seek recovery, the problem of drug use has largely been swept under the carpet in Derry. Terrible cliche, but true. I think if you talk to anyone who works professionally in any of the drug and alcohol related centres, or even anywhere connected with suicide awareness, depression and many of the associated mental problems it can bring, they will tell you that there's a new younger generation of people presenting, looking for help, for whom alcohol is most definitely not the primary issue. What so-called legal highs, which are inexpensive and freely and readily available in Derry, and in some drugs I think that often perhaps our city fathers and mothers would prefer to think aren't on our streets, but that anyone as young as 10 or 11 or 12 can tell you that heroin, crystal meth, crack cocaine are here, they're in our estates, they're affordable, and there are areas that are controlled by them, and it's affecting a younger generation. It's cheaper in many ways than going out socialising than alcohol, and for anyone looking for help and you need specialist help, there is nowhere to turn.
I see. Would I be fair to say that A&E doesn't want you, but the Foyle Bridge behind you does, in terms of people, the amount of people that you hear, young people committing suicide? You know,
that is a very cruel but a very true way of putting it. I think the problem with A&E is the staff there are under-resourced, they're under great pressure. They are not, and have no need to be or right to be, trained in dealing with specialist issues like drug and alcohol addiction that requires specialist treatment. At the minute, what I feel we have is a revolving door policy. Mental health services are changing. There's a bigger focus on community care. There's a lack of inpatient care. Even so, to me, and from my experience in living and working in the area of rehabilitation, the short fix, the bringing someone in temporarily to, say, a safe and secure mental health unit, stopping them cold turkey from their substance and sending them back out into the community 2 or 3 days later, cured in speech marks, does absolutely nothing. You need to look at the person behind the problem, the core of the addiction. Detox, even home detox, enforced by the most caring and loving of families, can be fatal if it's not carried out correctly. And at the minute it's really only available by paying to go to a specialist treatment centre, certainly outside Northern Ireland, perhaps outside Ireland completely, which to me is completely wrong. It's so discriminatory to say that specialist help is there if you can afford to pay for it.
I spoke to White Oaks Rehabilitation Centre in Donegal yesterday, and they told me it's something like £4,000 for 30 days to 6 weeks treatment. But they said they have a facility down there with an empty area of their facility, which could become a Derry detox centre, on the proviso that it would then lead on to more structured therapy, so it would get people off drink but also educate them. But it's just, I suppose, the cross-border issue, and that's very political, unfortunately.
Well, surely we have a new health minister. Perhaps it's time for new thoughts on this. I know there have been pioneering schemes in a number of areas. My native South Armagh would be one, where there is a great sharing of facilities cross-border. I think it's like any of the main and expensive and specialist treatment areas that there are in the health service. It makes sense in an area like this to make them cross-border, and I think there's an onus on both governments to fund them. So many of the really positive initiatives that have benefited this whole community have come from the people, for the people, funded by the people in what is a low-wage income. I can only give you the example of our own hospice and Foyle Search and Rescue, governments, please wake up and start putting some funding where it's needed.
Felicity, have you much experience in seeing anyone who requires to be detoxed? What kind of physical symptoms they have?
I think it's a nightmare that you would wish on you could not wish it on your worst enemy. It is nothing to do with willpower, it is nothing to do with self-control. It is someone who's mental. If you are in need of detox, you are mentally, spiritually and physically at rock bottom. You need specialist medical help, you need long-term recovery plan. There are no quick fixes. You need commitment, but you also need an awful lot of help at the start. And in the course of my work in the last year, I've been attending a number of conferences looking in particular at legal highs and prescription drugs. And when it comes to issues like legal highs, even the most specialist academics and professionals will tell you really they change so quickly that very little is known about them, very little has been researched on the long-term effects. There is not enough awareness of their availability, and that's something I think that needs to be done. We've got to stop treating them lightly. They're another major threat, particularly to our young generation, and our younger generation are our richest resources. They're our future. We should be helping them.